we'll just have fun.
I think we're live. Hey,
Yeah.
Jackie.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Okay, I just got a text. We're good to go.
Yay.
Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. I'm so excited.
Good. And we have not met before. We're meeting virtually here, but I wanted to let everybody know I'm really excited about this, about talking to you for a few reasons. One is you so generously were a part of our New Yorkers for New York campaign, which is awesome. You were one of the first people that joined. And so I do want to ask you later about like what life has been like for you, but also your business, you know, with the whole COVID situation. So thank you, seriously, for doing that. And I'm just like also really interested in tapping in general. And I watched your videos. And so like I practiced it a little bit. So be able to talk about that. And I just want to let everybody know that's listening, I will be getting questions over my phone. So if I check my phone, I'm not paying attention to Jackie.
You're not bored.
I'm not like reading the news or anything. I really don't read that much.
Don't read the news. That's my advice. Advice point number one.
Yeah. What is your, you don't read, I don't read much news either.
So I don't watch the news. I think there's other ways to be informed. I think both, ends of the spectrum are sensationalizing things. And I think it's like fear inducing. And I think we are in charge of our own reality. That doesn't mean we stick our head in the sand and we don't go out and contribute to causes and things that need our help and our energy behind them. But I think there's a way that we can choose how we want to get that information. And social media is so powerful too. You can get like really good information just through certain accounts or signing up for the text alerts, like from the government. And then that's like much more, less shown to you for the sake of getting viewership and media dollars and things like that.
Right. Now, speaking of the text messages, you're a New Yorker, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And you were telling me earlier you live in the West Village. I live in Nolita. And so I get those little text messages too. And it's interesting how they were so dire for a while. And now I feel like it's almost like a joy. Like, I don't know what it was today. Oh, today it was, they turned the, what did they call it? Cooling relief will be available.
Cooling centers, like for our elderly and
across parks, playgrounds, and neighborhoods during extreme heat.
Okay, cool. Yeah, a lot of the playgrounds are still closed, so like it's nice to see them sort of opening up again.
But it's nice that we're like getting texts like that again.
Yeah. I just mentioned to you, like I really actually wasn't even here for most of it. I ended up getting stuck in Asia and ended up flying back and hunkering down in California with a friend and just got back here right before Memorial Day. But I am like super, super proud of everything that everyone has been through here, and just our numbers are so amazing. I feel like we're really leading the country and just showing our resiliency and how we like make it through things. Yeah.
We are. I think that's such a good point. Like I spent 2.5 months with my family in North Carolina in a really, conservative area. And it's crazy how much just more vigilant and careful people are here. You didn't have to wear a face mask in our grocery store in North Carolina.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I would walk in, I would be the only person in the grocery store. And here, you're not even allowed to walk in without it. I'm like, yeah, that's so it's just really crazy. And now you see those states are having flare-ups, and we're like this, so it's good. Well, tell me, I'm really interested to hear. So you've got a class coming up. I should have the date, and I don't have it.
We should have the date. We should have the name of it, everything. And I'm like, wait, what is the name of it? I think the name of it is something like From Self-Doubt to Success or something like that. Yeah. It's
Raise your bar with EFT tapping.
Yeah.
I don't know. I should have the date. Let me see when it is. I'm clicking on the link.
I promise I have a whole like syllabus. Don't worry, guys, if you come to the class.
Let's see. Okay. The class is, the free intro is June 30th, although this is like a type of intro.
So it's next week. Yeah, next Tuesday.
And then it's 5 sessions. Class starts July 7th. Oh my God, it's a really good deal too. $180.
It is.
That's a really good deal. So let's talk. I had heard of tapping. I have never been through a tapping experience.
You're going to come to class.
Yeah, I will. Your videos for New Yorkers for New York were really like, I remember watching with my parents. Like they didn't know what it was either. So the three of us sat at dinner and watched your tapping video. Describe for people that may know as much as me or even less about this.
Yeah. Who think you're talking about tap dancing right now? Because that's what some people think. Yeah. So tapping is sort of the layman's everyday word for the type of tapping that I do, which is EFT, emotional freedom technique. And it is a combination of talking and tapping on your body. So literally like applying like fingertip pressure, like as if you were like, excuse me, when we could touch people in public, right? Excuse me, I'd like to get by. You just tap someone on the shoulder, just that sort of pressure of tapping. And you're applying it to different points on your body that relate to meridian lines. So it's basically a cousin of acupuncture. It's like emotional acupuncture, and different organ systems hold different emotions. And so this was created by an engineer. So not even somebody in the mental health space, but an engineer in the UK, I think about 1970s-ish, 80s-ish. And he was looking for the fastest way to feel better. And he found out, like an engineer, when he like took tapping on these points with these organ systems that have different emotional components related to them, and applied talking about his problem. So that's one of the things with tapping. Like we don't affirm and pretend like we're not feeling a certain way. We actually claim it and say it out loud. It has a lot less power when we have it coming out of our head. And we also look to the information from our body. So when we're feeling upset about something, even if I asked you right now to recall something that happened not so great in childhood, right? Bullied on the playground, you might have a physical sensation happening in your body, a lot of times in the stomach or the chest or the throat. So we use that information as well because we believe, in the energetic body, the mind-body connection. And we bring all of that and talk about it in a certain way, in a certain formula, and tap on certain points. And what it does is a couple of things. There's a lot of physiological evidence that this works. So you don't have to actually believe it. You can be like, yep, I look silly as can be, tapping on my face. I have clients that are like, do you do this in public? I'm like, of course. I'm like, no one sits by me on the subway. Great way.
Very good. You're healing and keeping your personal space.
Yes, exactly. So physiologically, it starts to rewire the brain. So new neural pathways, like when we start thinking the same type of thought over and over again, and so many times, like we're just running on thoughts that we're not even conscious of. We're just like thinking like, oh, this is never going to work out for me, or this public speaking is always going to be scary, or I shouldn't even ask because I'm going to get rejected. So all of these like limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves that impact the way we show up. So we shift those, we rewire the brain, we literally create new neural pathways. And we also, like a lot of other things are starting to happen in the body. We lower cortisol, which is the stress hormone. We reprogram the nervous system. So we stop getting nervous about certain things. We're basically communicating with the fight or flight part of our brain and sending a calming signal to it so that it could get like a whole new message about the way that we're thinking about something. And the reason that the body and the nervous system are so important is because we didn't come into this world having these beliefs. We were taught them by either somebody telling us living a certain experience, us observing a certain experience. Sorry, little noise from the street if you hear it. And that got programmed into our body. That is in our muscle memory. It's in the way that the nervous system is like, and the subconscious and everything that is working together to protect us. It's saying like, oh, don't go there, danger. And so we have this mechanism that's firing. And so we have to work with that. We have to work with the body below the neck to change the thoughts and the way that we show up to life.
When you talk about a rewiring, is it a temporary or it has lasting effects?
No, it has lasting effects. They've done a lot, and I'm not going to quote all the studies because I always laugh like when people are like, what's the science? I'm like, well, you can go to Barnes & Noble and get the Science of Tapping book. by Dr. Peter Stapleton, and the foreword's written by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh,
And
really? Oh, cool.
yeah, and like,
You say rewiring. I always think it's
yeah. So I'm like, you can get the book, but you'll fall asleep before like page 10 because it's all like, you know, the scientific studies of like N equals population and all that stuff. But we know that for things like PTSD, right? They've done lots of studies with that, and people have a relatively quick impact of like being symptom free. And when they check in with people a year later, there's a really high percentage, it's like 70, 80, I'm not going to get it perfect, but 70, 80% of people that really have not relapsed. So we know that there's like a lasting impact.
Okay. So that's, I mean.
And really, like, the way I see that is, so the way we think about things impacts the actions that we take, the way that we like then will allow ourselves to show up in the world. And integration to me is so important. So there's the implementation of the tapping, but then there's the actual new lived experience. And so the tapping allows you, say it's an easy example, public speaking, right? You're petrified of public speaking. I think it's the number one fear that people actually have. I think it's more than death.
Clearly not for you and I.
No, I'm a ham. I like thrive on this. I think it's like Leos or something, which I'm not. But I heard
greater fear of public speaking.
No. They like all the attention.
Okay.
I'm a Libra, but
you're a Libra. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what that says for my public speaking.
I'm not a big astrology person, but I do know that for me personally, I do feel like I like balance, and Libra's the scale. So maybe that's applicable. But what I was saying is that if you can change your actual lived experience of public speaking, right? So you do the tapping work on what is the ultimate belief underneath, what is the fear of judgment, the exposure, the potential to be embarrassed, the potential to like get it wrong, whatever the fear is. If you can work to rewire that and show up and actually deliver that speech and have it go well, now your whole nervous system body has a new normal experience of that.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how we like change our lives, and that's how we get like that sustainable.
So I would think that sounds to me like what they talk about in sports with you want to develop muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember in golf and in tennis, they're like, once you have like, if you have a good stroke in tennis or you hit the ball well in golf, remember what that feels like, take a mental image and, your body guide naturally toward that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned golf because golf is such a mental game, right?
Yeah.
And there are tapping practitioners that make their living with helping golfers. Yeah. Wow. And also there was a sports video. It was I think it was like Oklahoma State or something, baseball. They're like in the dugout and they were tapping just during the game. Yeah.
That would be doing it. Let me make it clear too. It's always something you do on yourself, right?
Yes. So anyone that I work with, even before COVID, was always them touching themselves. That's actually like New York State law, like, otherwise it's a whole nother license of like massage therapy type stuff. So I don't ever touch a client. They touch themselves, which is great because like how we were just talking about muscle memory, like you get the muscle memory of where the points are.
Right.
And then, I have clients that are like tapping at red lights or on the subway and stuff like that. And you can just use it in the moment to be like, you know what, like I'm feeling an emotional rise here. And whenever we feel an emotional rise and that sort of fight or flight kicks on, we lose blood flow to the frontal cortex of our brain, which then limits our ability to think rationally and to be creative and to problem solve. And so all of this, like, if there's a situation that actually needs so much more of that attention and we're nervous, we don't get it.
Right.
So it's a great way to just calm yourself down, like in the moment, and get back on track, get back focused on work or whatever it is that you need to take care of.
And how, like, let's say that is, you're in maybe you get off the phone at work, the call didn't go well, you've got another one in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Can you do something in 2 or 3 minutes that can be helpful?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like the approach of.
And if it's a phone call, not a Zoom call, you can tap some of the other points that they won't even
during the call.
They won't even hear or see. Yeah.
Or you just go off video in Zoom, which always annoys me when people are doing that a lot, unless they're eating. So it's really like the teach a person to fish, not give them the fish mentality here, because they can do the work on themselves rather than acupuncture per se. You've got to go to the acupuncturist every time you want to do it.
I think it's both, right? So like, I have like a personal mission to bring tapping to 1 million people in my lifetime. So of course, like I'm not going to work with each of those individuals. And so, yes, if I can put this tool in everyone's hands and they can help soothe themselves, my God, can you imagine like what our world could be like if people aren't, getting triggered or showing up as like not their best selves, regretting the way that they said something to a loved one or something like that. So definitely a tool that you can use to like self-regulate, self-love, calm yourself, all of that good stuff. Then working with clients, like I go the deeper route, right? So like my approach to, for intents and purposes, like it's easy to call myself a coach, but to me, coaches solve acute problems, right? It's like, oh, I need to increase my revenue, or I need to like get more Instagram followers, or whatever it is for your business. What I'm doing is really working on the business owner and helping them to step into a place where they can solve their own problems for the next 40, 50 years of their business. So I work really at the root. We work on a lot of like childhood. Where do these beliefs come from? Parents, family dynamics, self-beliefs, beliefs about how business works, beliefs about how the world works, clients work, like those types of things. So I really focus a lot and work primarily with women that have burnt out. And for me, burnout is a symptom of feeling unworthy, wherever that came from. But unworthiness in the sense they're probably not good at negotiating, because they're not going to like come to the table with like equal footing. So they end up overworking. They're bad with boundaries. They're underpricing. So they got to work harder to make the same amount of money. And because they're not making as much money, they can't hire resources and things like that to help them. So it all trickles into this overworking, over-perfecting, over-delivering, and underserving yourself. And it's not sustainable. Yeah.
Wow. I had never thought about like the overworked female professional as thinking maybe like the underlying issue there is undervaluing themselves.
Yeah.
So.
And some of it is like, I'm gonna go a little controversial, but some of it is like, so I am still a wing member, even though we don't have a place to go. But yeah, like some of these concepts of like the patriarchy and things like that, like we've been conditioned as a society to place a lot of value on masculine style leadership and not as much on feminine style leadership, right? So like, for example, a client, like music teacher, she's like, thinks that to chart, the metrics are like to hit the note, da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, but let's take a step back. Like you've got a bunch of 16, 17-year-old impressionable children that are feeling really good about themselves because you've empowered them through their music to perform beautifully and taken away the nervousness, and who knows where that's going to translate. And a lot of times we don't value those types of things, those more like feminine qualities that we deliver.
Do you think, I'm going to guess there's a multitude of reasons here. I mean, one, it's probably because men have been in power for most of the time and they created the systems and the rules. Do you think it's also maybe the masculine leadership aspects are easier to measure and we love everything?
Oh yeah, for sure. And like totally guilty. Like, so before I totally entered this phase two of my life, I worked in finance. I worked in accounting. I was a CPA. I worked for like one of the big 4 public accounting firms. Then I went to a boutique private equity firm. I mean, God, we measured everything. I almost said the SH word. I don't know if I could swear here, but
you can actually say whatever you want here. Very
yeah. So
conversation.
Yeah, and I always laugh, like I was having a very like neck up experience. Like everything was in my head, right? And powering through and getting everything scientific and precise and all that stuff, but it leaves you in a very black and white world.
Well, that's an interesting transition to why did you get into this?
Yeah. Why did I get into this? I don't know. I must have been.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was, let's think about this. How did this go? Yeah. So I was probably my client where I was burnt out.
You're going to eventually write a book on this. We'll do
I'm sure there's a book in the works.
We'll do the book launch for you.
Thanks. One of the things that I still continuously tap on and try to rewire is that I don't like writing. But there's ways around that. I love talking. So I'm just going to dictate the whole book and someone else will like take it, right? Hire the resources to help me get my message out. So
inside your core genius.
Yes. Guy Richardson. I love that book. That's the big leap.
Okay. I got it from something else, but maybe they got it from that.
Yeah. So I was working a lot. Like I said, I worked in public accounting. I stuck around for 7 years, which is sort of a lifetime over there. And then went to a private equity firm. And there were a lot of like, I'd take a sabbatical or like, I was like, oh, this project came up in Europe. And I went to Europe for 5 months. And like, you could see in hindsight, there were a lot of like hitting burnout, finding a way to like take care of myself, which wasn't sustainable. And so then I went on a trip to Asia with a friend, and I said, when I came back, I had such a like crazy experience there. Like I just really enjoyed it and was like, you know what, there's so much of the world to see. I don't want to do this for 2-3 weeks every year. So I like make this decision that I'm going to quit my job in a year and I'm going to go backpacking. So I leave, I go backpacking. I think I'm going to like fall in love like with some place somewhere and just like sail off into the sunset and like never come back and everything's going to be great. And then of course I like had a relationship. So I had to like, so I come home 10 months later. I've got a new niece, like things like there's life to be lived at home, right? So I'm not like going off somewhere else. But when I come home, I think everything is going to like sort of solidify itself. I think, my relationship is going to move forward. I'm just going to easily find a job again. And none of that happens. We end up breaking up. So here I am thinking I'm going in one direction. The opposite happens. I am like, can't find a job. I think I was on like a 5-month job search, therefore can't have an apartment. So I'm living in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house out in New Jersey. And, it's like sort of the low of the low. And I'm feeling completely lost inside. I'm completely beating myself up inside. And I kind of like just had this talk with whoever's listening. I call it the universe, and was like, God, like the gig is up, right? I have been around the world. I have not found it. There's nothing outside of myself. Something needs to shift inside myself. At this point, I think I was 31 or 2. I was like, I can't keep living like this. I can't keep feeling this way. I can't keep thinking all these things. I can't be so like detached and like tethered to all these things outside of myself. And some power must have been listening, because a friend was like, you should go see this woman that I know. And so I went to go see her, and, it was regular kind of therapy-ish type session. And the last 10 minutes, I felt very understood, but the last 10 minutes she says to me, do you want to try this thing called tapping? And I literally replied to her, this just shows you where I am. I'm like, I don't care what you call it, just make me feel better.
Right.
And I was so open to anything. I was like, just fix me. Right. And we tapped on a lifelong, core pillar story for me, which is my father and I's lack of a connection and lack of interest in me. He has a lot of his own stuff, which I can see and have so much compassion for now, right? Both my parents are from like, they escaped like Czechoslovakia when like the Russians invaded and all that. So there's a lot of trauma there and PTSD and things like that. And my dad chose to deal with his internal emotions through alcohol. And so he wasn't violent or anything. He would just drink a lot at night and pass out. So he wasn't present in my life, even though he was there. And I got a lot of messages about my self-worth and like who I was because of that. So we tapped on that 10 minutes. I think nothing of it. I think she's just silly thing. She's making me touch my face. A couple days go by. I get another email like, you didn't get the job. Automatic response, like pathway in my head, normal thought would be, of course I didn't get the job because I didn't have a father who taught me how to interview, how to present myself, how to sell myself, like, all the things that like you want, right? That parent behind you teaching you these things on how to go out into the world.
Right.
And instead I go to like reach for it and nothing's there. I'm like, wait, what's that story I tell myself? And then that pause was like, wait, what just happened? Wait, I tell myself that. That's not actually true. And, you know, it didn't erase my childhood, but it erased this link, this quick, like, knee jerk reaction that I had to like thinking. And then I was like, what is this stuff? And I like, you know, skipped back into our next session being like, okay, I want more of this stuff, like da da da. And I started going to her workshops, and this was the fall. And by February, I was in the program to become a practitioner. So it was super, super quick. And I did a lot of my own work, months and years actually, of like unpack, because to facilitate this stuff for other people, you've got to really be like a clear vessel. You can't really bring your own assumptions and perspectives into it. So yeah, so then that's been like, I don't know now, 5-6 years.
So it's almost like I had this image when you were talking about like you went to access that memory. It's almost like you're going to Netflix and they're like, this movie's no longer available.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right? My favorite movie that I can't stop watching, even though it's like scary and doesn't make me feel good.
The sad movie that made you cry, that has helped you, is gone. That's also interesting. You hear a lot of people talk about their path to being whatever type of healer they are came through like, I wanted to cleanse myself. It's usually maybe a combination of that and wanting to help other people, like a serious desire to just help others.
I think when you live a certain way for so long and you think it's great, like it looked great, right? To everyone else, I had the great apartment, I was like dating, I had money, I had like, you know, all of these things, the great job, the title, like who wouldn't want that? And then inside you're like, okay, this doesn't work. This isn't in alignment for me. And I feel like I'm kind of like keeping up like appearances. I don't want anyone to like find out like what's really like happening inside. So sorry, the phone just rang and I didn't shut my ringer off and now I lost my train of thought. Telemarketers. Where was I? It's live.
Well, now I lost my train of thought too.
Well, we'll pull it together.
Yeah.
Anyone ask a question? We can answer a question.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
We were talking about healing journey.
We were talking about
So yeah. So I think when you're like that for such a long time, you know you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know that that's not what it should feel like. Yeah. And then you get this tool that like works so quickly and profoundly and elegantly and like with such efficacy, and it's not mainstream and it's not getting put in people's hands, and people's solutions are to go to what the insurance company will cover, which is a very talk-based, non-body, non-nervous system. Let's regurgitate all the stories. Let's re-agitate everything, but not calm anything down and not reset anything. And you just are like, this is what I'm meant here to do. Like, you know, I'm meant to bring this to more people because our world could be such a better place. And then I hooked it into my past, which is like the business side of things. And how do I allow like more women leaders to show up? How do I allow more women business owners to be successful? How do I shift money into women's hands? Because most of the time women are more likely to reinvest in their communities and bring up the community, their families, and that sort of stuff. So then that becomes like a bigger mission for me too.
We'll talk about a few questions for you. So one of the questions I got was, how often a day do you practice this on yourself?
Not enough.
But also, I know it's a powerful technique. Well, it sounds like for anybody, but you do work with a lot of entrepreneurs. Now we understand you have a business background, so I think you can probably identify with entrepreneurs maybe easier than some people, where I do feel like some people that come from the healing community, it's like, if that's all you've ever known, sometimes it's tough for people from the business community to feel like you've got the credentials, but you sort of have lived in both worlds. So
yeah. That definitely like attracts certain people. You know, I've worked with like directors at investment banks, partners of major law firms, like things. So they definitely appreciate their credentials. Remember, the only business I've ever run is this one. So there is a difference between working in corporate and here. But yeah, I do, you know, it's something that I definitely understand. And a lot of people like who come to me, they get it, right? They've done the therapy for years. They've read all the books and stuff like that. But they're just not embodying it. They don't feel it. And a lot of them say, like, you know, when I was explaining these things to my therapist, like she didn't get it, you know. And I think therapists run businesses, but a big piece of what makes a business successful, which is sales and marketing, is not something a therapist ever needs to do.
Right. And they sort of need you to continue, I guess, coming back, right? I mean, not,
Yeah,
not I mean,
yeah, it is a bit of the business model. Whereas I'm more like, I want to bring you to a point and then you've got this. And you can do like clients will do what I call momentum. So like if they finish working with me, most of the time I work with clients over a 6-month period, and then maybe they'll do like one a month for another 6 months, something like that.
but I
So
mean, really, like for you to hit your million goal, you can't work with everybody for 5 years at a time. You need to like get people trained and have them go.
yeah, absolutely. And like a lot of like the way I work with people is I'll do things like this. I'll do I'll do classes, workshops, speaking. I do like when COVID hit, I did a ton of Zooms that I would just like throw up on Eventbrite. So people would show up to those. So yeah, it's growing. And then I have like a plan and a vision for the future where I would love to have like a foundational piece to my business where like I could go into refugee camps, I could go into like post-natural disasters and have that be like sponsored to bring a group of practitioners with me and really like help more people in underserved places.
Yeah.
And I do stuff with corporate too. So I've gone into Coach, I've done it Corcoran, I've done stuff with the Doe Fund, Ready, Willing, and Able, things like that.
How has COVID affected your business, and how? What's changed for you? Because you were doing some of this over Zoom already anyway, right?
Yeah. So everything has been over Zoom. So right when COVID hit, like I was in Bali because part of the benefits of always working on Zoom is that you get some location independence. And I am allergic to winter. I haven't been able to tap away my aversion to winter. So I love New York, but I just don't love it a few months of the year.
Is that because you're from New Jersey and you spent your whole
I
life?
have too much. Yeah, I do like snow and I'm a skier, but not like, when we, how it is, we get the slushy puddles and we're stuck inside and it's dark and all that stuff. So anyways, I was in Bali and we were in a bubble over there. Like it wasn't really, it really to this day has never really hit the island. And so then I started talking to friends at home and I was like, oh my God, like this is serious.
Right.
And this was like late March. And I was like, all right, like this is what I'm like, I get teary-eyed. Sorry, I get emotional all the time. Not sorry. But like, this is what I'm trained to do. Like, this is what, I've got a tool that helps people with anxiety, right? This is one of the most profound tools to reduce anxiety and to actually like end it. And so it's like, yeah, it's like light workers, it's time to work. And so we went to work. And so, yeah, I set up like some Eventbrites, had people coming into Zooms. I think the first one I had like 50 people. And just, started working on a series of things, working on the initial hit, the initial just trauma of losing control and feeling scared and what's happening to me, what can happen to my family, exposure, unknown, all of those types of things. And then we moved through other stuff as time went on. We moved through economic stuff. We moved through loneliness. And so we're just continuously showing up and serving, and all of that was free. Like that was open and something that I was like giving. And then, yeah, like my business did literally exploded because it was like 3x'd in a month from where I was average wise.
Like
but
the COVID increase rate, your business was just.
I did and I didn't, because I want to be clear about, a lot of people think, oh, your business did really well because like a lot of therapists also had like huge spikes, right? Because people are not feeling well, so they're using the resources that are out there for them. That is not exactly the case with me. So at the same time, I also got really quiet. Like I was telling you before, I like shut off the news. I really like got centered, went deeper within, started working like my own practice, my own tools, and really took a look at like, what have I been doing up until now? And what do I really want to do with somebody, with a client, right? And a lot of times I basically felt into that, like, I don't like where I leave people. Like I will get somebody who maybe comes in the door at a -10 and I bring them to like a 0, but like 0 is not good enough for me. I don't want baseline. People need more than baseline, right? Like life is already challenging, and like you need to come at life from a +10, not a baseline. And so I thought like into myself, like, how long does that take? What does that need to entail? And so I actually reworked my programs. But the point I want to make is that because it came from like my heart, because it came from my own desire, and I trusted that, and I trust my connection to my purpose for being here and how I get to choose to express that feels like the most in alignment, that even when there was like a uptick in economic uncertainty and like unemployment and things like that, that I chose to raise my prices and lengthen the amount of time that I spend with somebody, and sold those.
Yeah.
And they sold. So, you know, that's like the big thing is like, where are we always creating conditions or looking to things outside of ourselves that then limit the way that we want to show up? Because then you're never really happy. You work from like a resentment place or like a unsatiated place because you're not really fully expressing what you want to do.
The feeling undervalued or undervaluing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're setting yourself up to always kind of be disappointed because you won't go for like the big thing.
Which is, you know, I'd be interested to hear as an entrepreneur, and I guess I'm not one now because I'm in an organization, but I've been one in the past, although the Open Center is so entrepreneurial, it feels like a startup in many ways. What would you say?
You guys got a deep team over there. I feel so supported by you guys.
Oh, very sweet of you to say that.
I was like, you're not a startup. I worked in a startup in Europe, and it was like, flying by the seat of our pants.
Well, we appreciate that.
You're so well organized. I hope everyone watching feels that way too. I know, I'm sure
we
that
have a very good team. And some of them have been with us for 35 plus years, and some of them have been with us for 6 months. So it's a smorgasbord. It's awesome. What would you say are the characteristics maybe of entrepreneurship that are difficult now that you are focusing on a lot? I mean, maybe like, what are the 2 or 3 really common things people are coming to you with right now that you just say, what? I mean, tapping sounds like it's good for almost anything that's really bothering you, that you can find a spot on your body and access emotions.
You know the Frank's Red Hot commercial, the one that's on the radio with the little old lady, and she says like, I put that beep on everything. I don't know if you've heard it, but
I have some Frank's Red Hot in my kitchen.
But that's what I say about tapping. I'm like, just put that beep on everything.
That was an old, was that an old Chris Rock about put a little tussin on it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen the Chris Rock stuff, but yeah.
Chris Rock, and you talked about like what his mom would always say. It was like, just put a little tussin on that. Didn't matter if it was for a call.
Yeah.
Okay, so you throw a little tapping on that.
Throw tapping at it. Yeah, for entrepreneurs, let's see. I mean, because I think it's different, right? The types of entrepreneurs that I work with are really closely connected to their offering. So it's mostly service-based, and so it's a lot of creatives and other like coaches and healers and things like that like feel very connected to what their offer is, feel like their offer is like an extension of their like uniqueness. And so there's a lot of like, oh, it's not good enough, I'm not good enough, no one wants to buy this, it's not valuable enough, nope, you know, things like that. Like nobody wants this, I don't know how to market this, you know, selling, right? Like negotiating, overcoming objections. Like if you believe in the person's objection, you will just be like, okay.
Yeah.
And then you've done all that work to bring them right on the other side of the Zoom or whatever it is on the other side of the table. And you just like let them go at that last moment.
Right.
So I think it's a lot of that. And then some of the women that I still work with that are in like leadership positions, like within like corporate or like bigger organizations, I think it's just feeling like they can't trust themselves or they can't be like the fullest expression of themselves. There's like these unwritten rules, these boxes that they have to like stay within. And that becomes like anxiety inducing, doesn't feel like it's in alignment. It doesn't feel like they can move an organization like forward in a bigger way because they're afraid to show up in that certain way. So
it sounds like, so you work with a lot of women.
I have had male clients. Yeah.
Well, that's what I want to ask. Our audience is majority women. I forget our exact percentage. We're like 60-40 or 70-30. I can't remember which one. Big difference, I know, but
sounds like New York City demographics.
Right. You know what? It actually is. I think New York City's around 60-40, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought about that. I mean, our ratio is better than most of the retreat centers. That's a lot of just women that go. Some of those are like 90% women. But what I want to know is in your experience working with men and women, do you find there's a consistent difference in working with men and women?
I think men are a little bit, like, from the forefront, I think men are a little bit more decisive. So I think they come to the calls like ready to buy. They don't even care what I have to say. You know, like women are like, I don't know if it'll work for me. So like that, there's more of that like doubt coming through. Men are like, I heard this works. I want the solution done. And in terms of the actual like working, I don't see it as like too different, to be honest. Yeah. I think that might be because of the way that I work. And I like when I start a relationship, a client relationship with somebody, like we do have a 2-hour kickoff where like I work through a bunch of exercises to really like dig into the way that they see themselves, that like self-identity, where did that come from, the family relationships, the past like business experience, relationship experiences, all of like the what I call cousin beliefs. Like, so you might have like an overarching belief of like, I'm not good enough, but then what else does that mean? That means like there's not, I can't charge that much. There's not enough abundance in the world. There's not enough people to buy. Like, so there's a lot of like scarcity. Like if you don't think you're enough, your view of the world will be that that's not enough. Like there's not enough out there. Right. So I think that because I can very quickly, that what I do with them up front then lays out like the personalized tapping plan that we have for the rest of our time together. And so I think that helps to zoom in all of our work to the root. So that's what I think kind of helps it go. Like, I think men would have like a reputation for like not wanting to go deep enough, you know, but that doesn't really happen in my practice.
That is creating a personalized tapping plan, something people get when they come through your courses.
We won't be able to do it in the course, but I'm like going to guide people to be able to like pull up their own like limiting beliefs. And then like we're going to work on some of them. Basically, like my plan for our group work is we're going to do some work to try to pull some of those things up. We'll go over what we'll go over the basics of tapping, how to do it, the mind body, how the subconscious works, and get like clearer on the things that are holding the people that are going to enroll in this, like holding them back individually. And then I'm going to ask them to fill out like a survey, and then I'll get a good consensus of what's like the overarching beliefs that are like blocking the class as a whole. And then we'll start to work on those. Okay. Yeah.
And is there a maximum number of people you can handle in the class?
I forget what number I gave. I don't know if I said like 70 or something. Yeah.
I just want to let everybody know so they got to sign up quickly. We don't want it. I mean, we want it to fill up, but we want the people that are listening today to be able to have a shot.
Yeah, at this point, I'm pretty good at operating a Zoom room, and I think you guys are also supporting me with like a production person in the Zoom room.
We have moderators. We have a select group that have been really well trained, and we only allow that group of people to moderate.
Yeah. So we're gonna do a bunch of group tapping. You get what we call borrowing benefits. It's a phenomenon in tapping that even if you're not working on the very specific thing that it relates to you, I'll tell you 2 things that happen. 1, a person's like, that doesn't relate to me. They start tapping and they're like, oh shit, that does relate to me. Or 2, it doesn't exactly relate to you, but you're still going to get the benefits from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I love hearing that. Okay. Final question. I really dig the art on your wall behind me.
Those are my travels. Yeah.
I was going to say, do you have a story about 1 or 2 of those pieces?
Yes, of course. So yeah. So the top is a mask from Guatemala.
Oh, where?
From the market, that market with a really long name that I'm going to not be able to pronounce.
Yeah. Near Antigua, like an hour or 2 from Antigua.
Yes, yeah. So I believe that's like a mouse. And then below that is a mandala from Nepal.
Oh, wow. How long ago did you go to Nepal?
That was part of the 10 months of backpacking. Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, then I have there's some Cambodia. My living room is there's some Cambodian art.
Wow.
And over here, we have the Buddha is from Laos, and then a Vietnamese war propaganda poster. And then that's me when I was 7 at sketch.
Your art is all travel and feels like very spiritual.
Yeah, I guess it is the war poster. No.
Well, I mean, a lot of it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely I like the reminders of like where I've been and the people I've connected with and stuff like that. But the interesting, I said this before, I did like a big masterclass last week to my network, and I was like, yeah, I was like, if those of you who don't know me, like I love traveling, and I used to use it, like I called it travel escapism therapy. So it's when you don't want to actually like deal with what's happening inside, so you just go to another country and like tap out.
Right.
Yeah.
Not
So now I travel for enjoyment as opposed to
metaphorical tapping out there, not literal tapping.
Yes. Yeah.
Jackie's been awesome having you on. I look forward to your class. Thank you again for contributing to New Yorkers for New York and helping thousands and thousands of people. I think we've had over 10,000 people visit that now. So that's awesome.
And it's been my most viewed YouTube video. Not that I have that many up there, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we hope this will be up there too. People will be able to access this, I think, for maybe forever on Facebook. So fortunately, we didn't say anything we regret saying. And I really enjoyed the time with you, and I hope to see you in person sometime soon.
Awesome. Me too. And I would love to welcome anyone who's watching. If you have any questions or.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say the date again. Let's see. I gotta pull that back up.
I think it's the 30th is next Tuesday for the open house.
Raising your bar with EFT tapping, which is a type of tapping we talked about. We didn't talk about the other types of tapping, but free intro this coming Tuesday at 6, and then the classes start Tuesdays starting on July 7th, and it is 5 sessions every week on Tuesdays.
Yep.
Jackie, great talking to you. See you later.
My pleasure. Bye, everyone. Bye, Ross.